Now that Ruin's finally released, it's time to look forward to the next game in the Fnaf franchise. And the next game we should be expecting this year is a sequel to my personal favorite Fnaf game, Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted. But what minigames should we expect to see in this sequel? Well, that's what we'll be covering today. So without further ado, here is the top 10 minigames we are most likely to get in Fnaf Help Wanted 2. And starting off the list, we have the most obvious choice. Essentially, what the teaser that we got was already all about: a remake of Sister Location. I do expect them to probably change up a few things, so that way the game would work better in VR. But overall, due to how Scott Cawthon actually created FNAF Sister Location, it seems like a lot of the game would already fit well in VR. Also, Scott could be leaning into the Sister Location VR remake to help clear out a few misconceptions that we all previously had about this game. For example, I recently uploaded a theory about how the Mimic was secretly a chip inside of Circus Baby up until FNAF Sister Location. Maybe Scott Cawthon could be going back to Sister Location for Help Wanted 2 specifically to clear out these types of lore implications. But judging by how the first FNAF VR handled its minigames, I doubt that Sister Location will be the only past FNAF game getting a VR remake. Since the teaser for FNAF Help Wanted 2 put a big emphasis on Sister Location, I think it's pretty safe to assume that FNAF 6 will also be getting a couple minigames in the sequel. Now the question is, what part of FNAF 6 will be featured in Help Wanted 2? Because there are three main parts in each night of FNAF 6. You got the Pizzeria Simulator part, where you essentially build your own pizzeria and play minigames. You got the actual night shift part, where you're in some sort of basement type boiler room area luring away the scrap animatronics. And then you have the scrap area where you're essentially interviewing in a way all the scrap animatronics as they come along each night. And honestly, I could see all three of these options being their own individual minigame sections in FNAF VR 2, especially the interviewing segment of FNAF 6. Imagine how creepy it would be being in VR and standing at a wooden table right next to the huge scrap animatronics. Now if that's not badass, I don't know what is. One of the most iconic parts of the first FNAF VR were the parts and service minigames. So imagine if Help Wanted 2 brought back the parts and service minigames, but instead of the old animatronics, now we get to see the Glamrock animatronics. At the very least, I do think we will end up seeing the Glamrock animatronics somewhere in this game, just because of how new and how popular they are right now. But as for the ruined Glamrock animatronics, I'm not too sure if we'll be seeing those. And having the Glamrocks being a parts and service type minigame would be so cool, especially because of the little stomach hatches they got. Those would make for some fun and kind of cool-ish puzzles. And this would be a good excuse for Stillwool Studios to kind of explain how the Glamrock animatronics work and how advanced they really are in terms of tech. But nonetheless, I just think it would be really cool to have the Glamrock animatronics featured somewhere in this brand new Help Wanted game. If the Help Wanted games are really about going back and revisiting the old parts of the FNAF timeline, then why not have a minigame or two in there featured around Fredbear's family diner? Stillwool Studios have said in an interview before that they would really love to revisit the origins of FNAF. The only issue with that is at this point in the FNAF lore, we've gone really far into the future, and it would just be really weird to have suddenly a game that takes place at the very beginning of the timeline. But developing Help Wanted 2 would give Stillwool Studios the perfect excuse to finally revisit the origins of FNAF, like they said they wanted to in the interview. Also, there are still tons of questions about the old FNAF games involving that old FNAF lore around the Fredbear's Family Diner area area that have still yet to be answered by the community. And doing a couple mini games in this brand new Help Wanted game featured around Fredbear's Family Diner would be a really good opportunity to kind of clarify a few things, or at least point us in the right directions to get the answers that we've been needing for almost 9 years at this point. But with all that said, Fredbear's Family Diner isn't the only FNAF building that has never gotten a game centered around it. Chica's Party World is a building in the FNAF lore that has only been mentioned in the entire lore once, and it was in the form of source code. Back in Sister Location, there was an animatronic known as Funtime Chica. It's just she never appeared in the game because that whole week she was rented out to her very own place known as Chica's Party World. But now with Help Wanted 2 confirmed to be revisiting Sister Location, this would also be the perfect time to bring a bit of attention over to Chica's Party World. And especially since we literally don't know anything about this building besides its mere existence, it gives Steel Wool Studios and Scott Cawthon full range to do pretty much whatever they want, both with the minigames and with that part of the lore. So if Steel Wool Studios doesn't do anything involving Chica's Party World in FNAF VR 2, then that is literally just missed potential right there. But with that said, there's still one more building involving the Funtime animatronics we have yet to mention in this top 10. Circus Baby's Pizza World, the place where the infamous scoop of 80-something happened. If I had to guess, probably 82 or 83, but I don't know. That's not really confirmed yet. But anyways, even though this building specifically had to close down day one due to quote-unquote gas leaks, it would still be cool nonetheless to have it featured in Help Wanted 2. And since it is canon that this building was only open for one day at most, that means that if it were to have its own set of mini games, it probably shouldn't be the stereotypical being a night guard sitting in an office type mini games. Instead, maybe we could be doing something at the building like fixing gas leaks or something in the pipes, if Steel Wool Studios is trying to have a sense of irony in there. But nonetheless, no matter what kind of mini games are featured in Help Wanted 2, what I can say this game will have pretty confidently is brand new lore. And with brand new lore, you gotta have a villain. The last Help Wanted game had Glitch Trap as the main antagonist, but now that Security Breach came out, it's pretty safe to say that from Glitch Trap onward, the real villain we've been dealing with this entire time is the Mimic. So I'm willing to say that for Help Wanted 2, no matter what weird Glitch Trap entity that we see this time, it will definitely be some form of the Mimic. And with that said, how cool would it be if, just hear me out, what if there was a Mimic boss fight? What if this time around Help Wanted 2 is being corrupted by the Mimic, and the Mimic is starting to alter the code of Help Wanted and create his own version of it? And what if this leads to the final minigame that we have to play being us versus the Mimic? Not necessarily a fist fight, but just some form of boss battle like that. You can't deny that would be completely badass. I was hesitant whether or not I should put this game on the list, but I feel like if we are putting FNAF 6 and Sister Location both on this list, then FNAF Ultimate Custom Night also deserves some time in the spotlight. FNAF Ultimate Custom Night would be pretty complicated, not necessarily to incorporate into VR, but it's just the way of choosing which animatronics you want to go after you and not. That would be quite confusing and may take up a lot of data and storage that instead you could be using to improve the quality of the other mini games. Honestly, Ultimate Custom Night may be too big and perhaps even too ambitious to shove into Help Wanted 2, but just looking at the original Help Wanted, that one had FNAF 1, 2, 3, and somewhat 4, so if FNAF Help Wanted 2 continues on that same path, who knows, maybe we will end up getting Ultimate Custom Night after all. Like I said earlier on in this list, the parts and service segment of the original Help Wanted was one of its many highlights. And I feel like a good way for Steelwool to bring back the parts and service minigames could be in the form of the Funtime animatronics. The Funtime animatronics have some really complicated wiring and designs, so it would make for some really fun and really unique puzzles whenever we're trying to repair them. And also it would make for a good time for Steelwool Studios to point out the mimic chip inside of Circus Baby again. You remember that? No, I will not stop self-advertising for my own theory about the origins of the mimic. That 3-minute long theory video is too good for me to not advertise it. But all jokes aside, this just seems like it would make for some really good and unique opportunities, both lore and just straight up gameplay and puzzle wise, if we have to repair the Funtime animatronics in a parts and service minigame. And with that said, we are down to number 1 on this list. Ever since the Help Wanted mobile port, every other FNAF game has had its own interpretation of Princess Quest. There is no doubt that Princess Quest always has some sort of deeper, metaphorical lore implications, most likely involving William Afton and Cassidy, mainly because in Security Breach the character sprite for the princess had the name Cassidy in the files, but I digress. No matter what Princess Quest is trying to tell us on a metaphorical level, it is still mostly unanswered. I think the best way to explain what I'm trying to tell y'all is that Princess Quest is the black sheep in the flock that is the FNAF franchise. But nonetheless, due to Princess Quest's importance and implications in the lore, I am fairly certain that we will be seeing some form of those minigames brought back for Help Wanted 2. And with that said, this has been the top 10 list of minigames that we are most likely going to see in FNAF Help Wanted 2. Make sure to let me know down in the comments below what minigames y'all would like to see or make any sort of reappearance for the sequel. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did enjoy, and I will see y'all in the next video. Goodbye.